All right, today we're going to cackle one of the most powerful and honestly misunderstood words in international law, genocide. We're going to break down what it actually means, legally speaking, and then see how it applies to the urgent, real-world situation facing the Hazara people in Afghanistan. Okay, so to really get our heads around what genocide is, we've got to start with what it isn't. And that means dealing with a huge, and I mean huge, common misconception right off the bat. You know, when you hear the word genocide, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's this image of total destruction, the complete and utter extermination of an entire people. But is that what it actually means in a court of law? Well, according to international law, the answer is a really clear and simple no. The scale of the killing is, of course, always horrific, but believe it or not, the final body count isn't the single defining factor. And this is why. This is the absolute core of it all. The crime isn't really measured by the number of victims, but by the intent. Legally, genocide is all about proving the intention to destroy a group, even if it's just in part. That one idea, intent, is the linchpin of the entire legal definition. So here's where we get a little bit into the legal weeds, but it's super important. Genocide is what's called a crime of conduct, not a crime of result. What does that mean? It means the crime is committed in the act itself, as long as it's driven by that specific intent. You don't have to wait for the horrible final outcome to be complete. The moment a group starts taking actions with the clear intention to destroy, the crime of genocide is already happening. And this is where legal scholar Dr. Abdullah Shafaei really helps us out. He makes it clear that this intent doesn't have to be some publicly declared plan or a written manifesto. You can actually infer it from a pattern of actions. Things like systematic, targeted attacks on the schools, hospitals, and community centers of one specific group. The pattern tells the story. Okay, so if it's not just about mass killing, what specific actions do legally count as acts of genocide? Well, international law is incredibly specific about this. There are 5, and these are laid out in the foundational documents of international law, like the 1948 Genocide Convention and the Rome Statute, which is basically the rule book for the International Criminal Court. And as you can see, this goes way beyond just killing. It includes causing serious harm, both physical and mental, deliberately creating conditions that make life impossible, preventing births, and even forcibly taking children away. Now, here's the key takeaway. You just need one of these acts, as long as that genocidal intent is present, for it to legally qualify as the crime of genocide. And look, this isn't just some high-level, abstract concept floating around at the UN. It's also written directly into national laws, and that includes Afghanistan's. Yep. In fact, if you look at Article 333 of Afghanistan's own penal code, it's pretty much a direct copy-paste of the international definition. It lists the exact same 5 acts we just went over. But here's a really strange quirk that Dr. Shafaei's research found in the Afghan code. Take a look at this. Even though genocide is called the crime of crimes, its minimum punishment is actually lighter than for crimes against humanity or war crimes. It's a bit of a legal paradox when you think about how severe the crime is. So, all of this brings us to a massive question, right? When these terrible things start to happen, who is actually supposed to step in and stop them? Well, to try and answer that, the international community came up with this principle back in 2005. It's called the Responsibility to Protect, or R2P for short, and it's basically built on 3 pillars. So here's how it's supposed to work, in a nutshell. First, every country has the main job of protecting its own citizens. Pillar 2, if they're struggling, the world should help them. But Pillar 3 is the big one. If a state is clearly failing to protect its people, or worse, is the one causing the harm, then that responsibility shifts to the entire international community to take action. It's designed to be a kind of global safety net. Okay, so now that we have all that legal groundwork laid out, let's bring it back to our case study. Why exactly have the Hazara people in Afghanistan been so systematically targeted for so long? Well, what the sources tell us is that this isn't random at all. It's a really complex mix of history and ideology. The Hazaras have a long history of resisting oppression. In recent decades, they've deeply embraced modern values, things like education for all, democracy, and human rights. And here's the tragic irony. It's that very progress, the role in building a modern Afghanistan, that extremist groups like the Taliban frame as a crime, making them a top target for anyone who wants to drag the country backwards. So given how incredibly serious and, frankly, ongoing this whole situation is, what's the path forward? What can actually be done to find some kind of justice and protection? The strategy that's proposed here isn't just one single thing. It's more like a multi-pronged attack. It's a mix of external pressures, like taking legal action at the International Criminal Court and keeping up political pressure, but it's combined with solutions from within Afghanistan. And notice how much weight is put on national unity and building coalitions inside the country. That's seen as absolutely critical. And this quote from Dr. Shafaei really just nails that crucial internal piece. The whole argument is that the only way forward is for other groups in Afghanistan to stop seeing the Hazaras as a threat and instead see them as they are, essential partners, human capital that is vital for building a stable and democratic future for everyone. The fundamental idea is that a threat against one group is ultimately a threat against the entire nation. And that's what this all boils down to, really. It leaves us with this one final, incredibly stark question. When we're faced with what international law itself calls the ultimate crime, the intent to destroy an entire people, is silence ever really an option? It's a question that doesn't just challenge governments, it challenges every single one of us.